Hi there, and welcome to this video series on creating PowerPoint games for pets. Now I know that the reason you are here is to actually learn how to do this, and so I will keep this introduction short. The reason why I put this together is that I recently adopted a cat who is absolutely fascinated by these games that allow pets to interact with moving objects on the screen. At the same time, his fascination with a single game tends to wear off after playing it a few times, meaning that I was constantly needing to search for something new. As a former teacher turned company trainer, I had some experience creating videos and interactive training tools using PowerPoint, and so I thought, why not just create my own customized games for him? As it really gives me a sense of accomplishment to watch my cat interacting with these games, I thought it might be fun to show others how to do the same for their pets. So in this series, I will walk you through how to build your own games from start to finish, and together we'll create two types of games. One that is in video format, like the ones you see on YouTube, and one that is interactive, like what you will find in apps. Once you get the basics down, it's pretty easy to do, even if you haven't used PowerPoint before. While we will be using a side of PowerPoint that isn't used frequently, we'll also be touching upon some of the basic features, so I'm hoping this series will also help you to become more familiar and comfortable with using PowerPoint, as it really is a fascinating application. Okay, now that I've introduced this video, let's dive right in. To create the foundation for our video, we are going to begin by selecting the background. PowerPoint has some options for us to use, or we can put in our own custom background. To see what PowerPoint has to offer, let us begin by clicking on the Design tab. While we can choose from the options on the left, because this is not a presentation, I prefer to stick with something more conservative, like a solid color. Don't worry if you don't like the color, as once we've selected the background, we can modify the color by clicking on the drop-down menu on the right. If your pet, like mine, enjoys chasing objects across a certain type of floor, you can customize your background to mirror this. To customize your background, you can click on the Format Background option. And then you can add your own image or picture by clicking on the picture or texture fill. From here, you will click on the Insert button and select the image that you would like to add. Now comes the fun part, adding the target that we would like our pet to go after. Here is where our understanding of what really interests our pets comes into play. And even if you don't know, here's a great chance to experiment and find out. Adding an object into your game can be done in a couple of different ways. We can use an existing object, one that has already been created, or we can create our own using the shapes and icons in PowerPoint. I'm going to demonstrate both strategies, starting with using an image that has already been created. But before doing so, let's change the background to a tile motif using an existing image. So again, we'll go to Format Background, Picture or Texture Fill. We'll click on the Insert button and choose the picture that we want to add as our background. Okay, now that that's done, let's go ahead and add our object. If you don't already have an image that you would like to use, I find the easiest place to start would be here with the search engine. Now I'm going to use Google for this, but really any search engine would do. And I'm going to type in the type of image that I would like to include. From there, I'll click on the Images tab and select the image that I would like to add. So for this presentation that we're working on, let's go ahead and add this image. Now to do that, I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy the image. Then moving back to PowerPoint, I can add the image either by pressing Ctrl V, or I can again right click and select any of these options would work. I would stick with the first one or the third one, but again, any of these options would work for adding the image. And now we have our mouse on our game. Now, because the background here doesn't quite match the background that we have, if we had a white background here, this would be perfectly fine. But since we don't, what we're seeing here is the background on the mouse is clashing with the background that we have. Not a problem. What we're going to do is we're going to click on Format. Make sure the image is clicked before you do this. So again, you click on the picture, click on Format, and then select Remove Background. When removing the background, what we need to pay attention to is this purplish color on our image. Anything that's in purple will be removed from the image that we currently have. Now for this, I'd like to zoom in as much as possible. I can do that by using this sliding bar at the bottom, or I can hold down the Control key and scroll up and down on my mouse to be able to do that as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Mark Areas to Keep. And I can highlight anything that is currently in purple that I would like to remain. So here I'm going to get the tail. Oh, okay. And I'm also going to get some of these whiskers. Again, it's not going to be perfect depending on the image that you have, but we can get it pretty close. Now here I have the full image of the mouse, but I do end up with some white spaces, and in order to get rid of that, I will now click on Mark Areas to Remove, and I can carefully remove anything that's in white. So here we have, again, two options. We can mark areas to keep as well as mark areas to remove. And I'm going to try and get this as purple as possible. Okay, this is pretty close. I noticed that I'm missing part of the tail here, so click on Mark Areas to keep. Okay, so now when I click out of this image, I should have just the mouse. Oh, I notice I'm missing part of the ear here, so let's go back and do that again. I'm going to click on Format, Remove Background, Mark Areas to Keep, and let me get some of that ear in here. Okay, so this should be good. I'm going to click outside of the image. Now what I can do is I can scroll back out by pressing on the Control button and scrolling down on my mouse, or using this slider bar here. Either way, what we now have is the mouse without the background. Before we move on, let us go and change our background to a plain white. Now, because we have the Format Background task pane already open, it would just be a matter of clicking on this fill icon right here. Now, if we didn't have this task pane open, what we would do is, just like we did at the beginning, we would go over to Design, Format Background, and it'll open this pane for us. So in order to go back to a plain white background, let us click on Solid Fill. And if we didn't want white, we could choose our color by clicking on the drop-down menu here. We could even customize these colors by clicking on More Colors. And if we wanted to go even further, we could go on Custom and select from a large range of colors that we have. In fact, let's go with a green color for now, and we can select the shade of green that we want. Okay, now that we've done that, now keep in mind, PowerPoint does not have quite as robust a selection when it comes to the icons, but it does have a few. And so in order to do that, we would click on Insert, and we would click on this icon option. From here, I can select the icon that I would like to insert. Let's go ahead and put in a face. Yeah, let's use this. So in order to insert the icon, all you'll have to do is double click on it. And there you go. Now for those who may be looking for something that has just a little more flavor, PowerPoint actually has some pretty neat 3D images as well. And so to access those, we would go back here to the Insert tab, and we would click on this 3D Models button. Now, as you can see, we have some images that are a lot more fun. So let me click on this Animals option. And by scrolling down, I can see the different images that I can choose from. Let's go ahead and let's add this dog. So I'll double click on this, or you can click on it and click on the insert button. Either way works. I'll just double click. And what's really fun is once I've inserted this image, I actually have a variety of different poses that I can choose from up here. So if I want the dog to be lying down, I can go ahead and just click on this option. Now, aside from these 3D images that we have, if I go back into the Insert tab, click on the 3D models, we also have some animated images that we can include as well. So just to show you what this looks like, I'll go ahead and click on this. And let's add ourselves some fish. So again, I can double click on this or click on it and then click on the insert button either way. And as you can see, now we have ourselves some animated fish. So these are some of the 3D options that we have through PowerPoint. Now, for those of you who are on the more artistic side, you can actually create your own customized images from scratch by using a variety of shapes and lines. And I'll show you how to do this. Now, keep in mind, I'm not the most artistic person, so I'll keep this simple. But for those of you who are and would like to create your own custom images, this might be a great option. And so to access these shapes and lines, what we're going to do is, again, we'll just go back to the Insert tab. And we'll click on this drop-down menu for shapes. Now I'm going to again, I'll keep this really simple because I'm not that artistic, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert this circle here. And so to do that, I'm just going to click on my mouse and drag. And if I want to change the color of the shape that I just added, all I have to do is click on this shape fill. And just like we did with the background, we can select the color that we want. I'm just going to go with white. And then we can also change the outline of this shape. Right now I have it set to black. If I wanted to change the color, I could just click here on the shape outline and choose the color that I wanted. Now, the other thing that I can do while I'm in here in the shape outline is also determine how thick I want that outline to be. And so to make it thicker or thinner, what I would do is I would click on this weight option. And I can choose from a variety of different lines here. I'm going to choose the 3-point to make the line that I have a little thicker. Okay, now to add, if I wanted to add a face here, I could go back, I could insert, and I could draw some eyes by going back to shapes, or I could actually do a variety. I could click on icons. Now, if you remember, there were some facial features within the icons. So instead of having to create the eyes from scratch, I can just take it from here. So now we have here in the middle of all of this action, the eyes that we just added. So in order to move this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, and by holding down, I'm going to drag it over to where I want the image to be. Now what we want to keep in mind is once we click on it, we can also resize it by holding down on one of the corners or on the side and by pulling it down or up or sideways. So let's go ahead and make these eyes a little bigger so you can see what I'm talking about. And I can make it smaller again by clicking and holding and pulling it in. I can do the same with any of these images. In fact, let me just do that with the fish here since they are a little small. So I can click on it by clicking and holding on the corner. I can pull it to make it a little larger. And again, if I want to move it, I'm going to click and hold and drag. Okay, to this face now, let's go ahead and add a nose. And let's make a cat's face. Now again, I'm not an artist, so I'm just going to keep this really basic. I'm going to click on now the Insert tab again. And let's add a shape for the nose. This time I'm going to use a triangle. And so I'm going to draw my or create the image right here. And what I want to do is I want to flip this upside down. And in order to do that, if you look at this arrow right here, if I click on it, hold and drag, I can turn it in the direction that I want. Again, let's change the color of this. Let's go ahead and make it a pink or a red color. And let's go with an orange outline. So again, I'm going to click on the drop-down menu next to Shape Outline. I'm going to select the color that I want. Now, if I want to customize it, let's do that. I can click on the More Outline Colors. I can select the shade of orange that I want. And then using the slider bar here, I can change the contrast, the brightness or the darkness. Okay, let's go with this color right here. Okay. So now that I have the nose, I'm going to go ahead, click on it, drag it over to the face. And I'm going to make it a little smaller by clicking on the circle on the outside and pulling it in. Now, if I wanted to really fine-tune this, I can use this option right here in the upper right-hand corner to create the actual dimensions for my shape. I can select the height and the width as well. For this exercise, I'm just going to keep it as is. Again, I'm going to hold down on it now and kind of drag it to the center. Okay, there we have our nose. And let's go ahead and add a mouth. So same thing, I'm just going to go back to our insert. I'm going to choose the shape. And this time, let's try drawing it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this option, which is a free form. And starting here, I'm going to do my best to try and create close enough. Okay, now I want to do the same for the other side. And so what I can do is I can, of course, draw it in, or what I can do is also click on it and I can copy and paste it. In order to do this, in order to copy, what I can do is hold down the Control key on my keyboard and click on C, or I can right click here and click on copy. Now, in order to paste, all I would have to do is click on Control V, or again, I could right click and I could paste it. Now, because I want it to be going the other way, what I can do is using Format, I can flip this object. So what I'll do is I'll click here, and this will allow me to rotate it, and I'm going to flip it horizontally. Now we should have a mirror image of the first part of the mouth that we created. So again, what I can do here is click on it, hold it down, and drag it into place. Sorry, let me adjust this while I'm at it. Okay, and here we have the outline for the face. Now, if you wanted to add whiskers, you could again go through the process of inserting shapes. And here we'll use some lines for our whiskers. And again, just click where you want it to start, holding down the mouse, pull it out, and let go once you're ready. And so from here, you can go ahead and draw in the individual whiskers, or what we can do is do what we just did, which is a copy and paste. I'm using the Control C this time and the Control V. And then I can, holding it down, I can change the angle, pull it back in. Same with this, I can either change the angle this way or I can rotate it. I'm going to just pull it down. That's probably a little easier. And by clicking on it and holding on it, I can move it to where I want. In order to create the whiskers for the other side, you can go ahead and do the same process. I'm not going to do that though, because I want to move on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and insert some ears up here. So I'm going to select a triangle shape for that. I'll add my triangle shape, and again, if I want to rotate it, all I have to do is click and hold on this arrow and drag in the direction that I want. Okay, now that I have one ear, I'm going to go ahead and click and hold and move it over to the face. Now, if you notice, what happens is it's kind of a first in, the first object that you add gets added to the back, and as you start adding things on, they go more and more to the front. And so what I want to do is I want to pull this back so it's behind the face. If not, it looks a little odd. So I'll click on this triangle here. And what I'll do is going to format, and I can bring it forward or I can send it backwards. Let's send it backwards. In fact, I'm going to send it all the way to the back so it goes behind the head. So here we have something that looks a little more realistic. Now let's say we wanted to take this up a level. Instead of using a combination of shapes and icons from PowerPoint, what I can do is I can use a combination of shapes and online images. So let's replace the eyes here so you can see what I'm talking about. So like we did with the mouse, let's go ahead and search for blinking eyes. And if I wanted to animate this or have it animated, what I could do is I could make it a GIF file. So I'll click on images. And select the eyes that I want to use. Let's go ahead and use these eyes for this example. So by clicking on it, you can see what it's going to do. So you can see it blinking here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. Again, I'm going to right click and copy image. And I'm going to take it back over to my PowerPoint presentation. So I can right click and paste, or I can press Control V. Now for this one, when you paste it, you will want to use this option, this first option here. You will want to refrain from using this if you want it to be an animated image. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is, in order to get it to fit, it looks like I'm going to have to shrink it down a little. So I'm going to click on the image. I'm going to click and hold in the corner here, and I'm going to pull in to make it smaller. Now, because of the fact that I want to replace these eyes with these, I have to first delete what I had. And so it's as simple as clicking on it and then pressing the delete key on your keyboard, or you can always right click on it and select the cut option. Okay, so now I'm going to drag these eyes over to the image. And like we talked about, things are layered. So because this is the last image that I'm adding, the most recent image that I'm adding, it is going to go to the top, and it is going to cover our nose and part of our whiskers. And so in order to move it backwards, I can click on Format. Now, if I were to send it all the way to the back like we did with the ears, it's going to go behind everything, which is an option. I can send it backwards and then bring it forward, or I can just click on Send it backwards until it goes behind the image that I'm looking for. So if you notice, every time I click on Send it backwards, we're getting another whisker appearing. I think one more time should do it just to get the nose back in there. Nope. Did I get the nose back in? Okay, I got the nose back in. So now, if you notice, by looking at this slide, it's not blinking. In order to see it blink, what we'll need to do is put it into slideshow mode. And that can be done in one of several ways. I can hold down the Shift key and click on F5. I can also click on the slideshow tab up here, and I can view it from current slide, or I can go to the bottom here and click on this icon, which will also put it into slideshow mode. Let's just go ahead and do that so you can see. So now going into slideshow mode, you can see the blinking eyes here. If I wanted to now get out of slideshow mode and go back to the slide I was working on, easiest way is to press the escape key on your keyboard, or I can double click. Okay, so now we have our eyes, our whiskers, one ear, and our mouth. Let's go ahead and just finish this off since we're really close. And so what I want to do is I want to add another ear here, and I want to add whiskers on this side. So like we did with the mouth earlier, I can go ahead and just click here on the ear. I can copy it by pressing Control C or by selecting the copy option on my mouse, using my mouse. And then I can paste it by pressing Control V or again right clicking and pasting. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this image, I'm going to move it over to the other side, and I have two options here. I can manually rotate it over, or like we did earlier, I can flip the image. So let's just go ahead and flip the image to make sure that it is matching what we had with the other one. So I'm going to click on Format. I'm going to select this rotation this rotation option, and I'm going to flip it horizontally. Okay, let me move it over. Now again, if you notice, it is the last one that we've added, so it's at the top of the image. We're going to have to move it back. For this one, I can send it all the way to the back. So again, Format, or actually I could right click on it as well and access the option this way. So I'm going to send it all the way to the back. Now that we have our ear moved over, what I'd like to do is do the same thing for our whiskers. I'm going to move them over to this side, but instead of moving them over one at a time, I'm going to go ahead and move them together as a group. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click outside of the object, and by holding down on the mouse, I'm going to draw a box around the objects that I want to capture. Now, if you notice, part of the mouth is in there. The mouth won't be captured because of the fact that in order to do this, the objects have to be fully within the box. And because we have part of the mouth outside of the box, it won't be captured as we do this. So as I let go, you'll see what I'm talking about. So as you can see here, we captured the three whiskers, and even though the mouth was partially in the box, because it wasn't fully in the box, it's not captured. So what I'm going to do here is like we did with the ear, I'm going to go ahead and copy it, and I can do that by holding down the Control key and pressing C to copy. And then I'm going to paste it. And I can right click to do that and select paste, or I can click on Control V. Okay, now we have our three whiskers. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to slide them over to the other side. And like we did with our ear, we're going to have to rotate it. So I'm going to click on Format here. And then I'm going to select the rotation object, or the rotation option, and I'm going to flip it horizontally. So now we have the mirror image, and I can go ahead and just move this over slightly. Okay, there we go. The last thing that I want to show you regarding objects is how to group things. And this is really important because if I were to click here and try and move my face over, or if I were to try and resize it, it would only capture one object. Here, let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I were to click here and I try to resize things, it's not going to take the full face. It's only going to take a part of it. So in order to do this, and by the way, anytime you do make a mistake, you can use Control Z to undo what you just did, or you can click on this back arrow here. Let me do that. So in order to adjust all of the objects together, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to first have to group them. And to do that, I can click outside of the object, and again, holding down the mouse, I can create a box around it. And this will capture everything within the box. Now by right-clicking, I can select the group option. And I'm going to group these objects together. So now if I were to move it over or to resize it, you'll notice it just all moves together. I can also do it with single objects. I can go ahead and click on one object, and by pressing the Control key, I can click on another. and I can right click and I can group it that way as well. So it doesn't have to be all of the objects together. I can group just certain pieces. So if I wanted to just group the whiskers together, I could go ahead and do that. Now that we've walked through the basics of setting up the background in your images, let's take a pause here so that you can create your own. Once you're done, please click on the link below and we'll move on to the next part, which is how to add animations and motions to your images to really bring it to life. As we move forward, I'll be adding other videos such as how to create games with dimension and how to create interactive games for your pets. So please don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you learned something new today, please click on the like button. Thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to having you back for our next session.